It was a great session, and with a request that he could have something for the higher education. Sandeep sir very humbly he accepted our request, and I'm thankful to you, Sandeep sir, for accepting our to be with us this evening, and hope we are going to gain a lot of information about the new education policy in higher education. Welcome again, and I would request you to take over, please.
Thank you so much, Madhulika ma'am, and good afternoon, good evening, and Jai Hind to all the college professors and all other members of the Sunbeam College for Women, Bhagwanpur.
Jai Hind.
I'm usually not used to such a warm welcome. So anyways, I felt great about the welcome, Madhulika ma'am. Thank you so much. See, basically, we are here today to spend some time discussing on the nitty-gritties of the education policy, the higher education segment only. And it is important once at least for all of us to go over it and understand what is it all about, the higher education segment of the new education policy, which has come into existence over after 34 long years. So coming up with the presentation, I have got a very crisp and a short presentation and to the point presentation. This session is invariably going to be of academic nature. I'm sorry for that. It is not going to be like a webinar or a panel discussion as such, because I'm the only speaker here as of now. Towards the end of the session, when I have gone through all the slides and I have mentioned and explained, or discussed the main points of the education policy of the higher education segment, I would warmly welcome any of you, anybody among you who probably would be glad to contribute something more towards the entire discussion. And hence I would try my best to keep my presentation short so that we have ample scope and ample time for discussion towards the end. I know it's a busy evening time for all of you, and it is very difficult to take out time for all such things besides the regular pandemic activities that are all around going on. Sudeshna is smiling, but you are visible on the screen. Anyways, good. No, it's good to smile. Good to smile. Okay, fine. So let me share my screen first. So here comes the National Education Policy 2020, Major Transformation Reforms in the Higher Education Sector. So this is how it goes, and we are going to go through the various chapters of the higher education segment of NEP. Those who want to keep your videos switched off, you can please, because network is an issue. The whole idea is to listen to what is being told or what is being spoken and to look at the screen on your device, that what is being shown. Later we can have a discussion if at all we have time or we have anything to discuss. So coming back to the slides. Evolution of education policy, a brief history about the various education policies that India has seen so far. Primarily and majorly, there have been 3 education policies in India so far. First one, you can say the 64-66 policy, the famous policy of Kothari Commission, which is known as Kothari Commission, which was chaired by Dr. T.S. Kothari. The main points of this commission was free and compulsory education and academic freedom to teachers to publish their work. These days, college professors are so happily publishing their research work, and their research work is published in various journals, and it adds on to their academic credential. This was for the first time propounded in the Kothari Commission education policy. And this 10+2+3 structure of education, which is currently in prevalence, which is currently in practice in India, was actually propounded by this commission, Kothari Commission. And this commission talked about free and compulsory education, but surprisingly enough, way after this 1966, in 2009, this Right to Education Act came into existence. It took so much of time for this commission's recommendation to actually get effected. Then came the National Policy on Education, 1986, which was basically a revised edition of the previous and the existing already practicing in practice education policy. The primary highlights of this commission was the emphasis on environmental conservation and studies related to environment. Women's equality was stressed upon in this policy. Improvement of examination system was a major highlight of this policy, and a lot of things have been done in examination reforms since then. And of course, checking brain drain was also one of the major issues which was addressed by this policy, the National Policy on Education. Then came into existence the National Education Policy Commission, which was formed in January 2015. And you know that the first draft of this commission was produced by the commission in the year 2019. So it took complete 5 years for this commission to do an extensive research in various aspects of Indian education system, school and higher education, and also the field of research and publication. And thereafter came up with the recommendations, which was placed, and invitation was sent to various departments in various schools and colleges and universities and different stakeholders to come up with their contributions, suggestions, criticisms, so that the policy can be finally drafted into a final education policy, which came into existence on 29th July 2020 after a lot of recommendations from different areas. The consultation process was inviting consultation from the period was January 2015 to October 2015, as I told you, through MyGov.in. 2.5 lakh Gram Panchayats and 6,600 blocks and different other stakeholders were invited to contribute their suggestions. The NEP 2019 summary in 22 languages and also in different audio books it was published, so that it goes into every corner of the country, and everybody who's related to education, who has got to do and who has got a say into education system of India, should be able to understand what is being propagated by the policy at the draft level. Then educational dialogues were held with different MPs and different governments of states like Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Telangana, especially because there was a lot of controversy in that phase about the three language policy, in the three language suggestion in that policy. Finally was modified. Special meetings were held of CAB, and the Parliamentary Standing Committees on HRD was formed on 7th November 2019, which finally gave its recommendations about the different aspects of the education policy, and a lot of reforms came up after that. The key takeaways of the new education policy higher education segment, if I have to talk about the key takeaways, then this slide actually explains you everything about the higher education segment. Primarily speaking, the higher education segment suffers the most with enrollment. You know, the enrollment ratio at the school level is 100%, so to say. Meaning to say that almost every child of India does go to a school, some sort of a school. But by the time the child graduates and the time has come for the child to go to a university or to a college, the ratio falls down drastically to 25% to 26%. This is called gross enrollment ratio. So a lot of emphasis has been given so as to improve this GER aspect of higher education. Then research-oriented curricula has been stressed upon to be developed, that the pedagogy of the colleges these days is like teaching and learning. Rather, delivery of lectures, taking down certain notes, then there is semester exams, and then there is award of degrees. This is what college education is. Whereas research is the primary objective of higher education, which has been stressed upon, and there is a lot of things have been done in this policy, which I will be explaining in the forthcoming pages. Multidisciplinary has been stressed upon, that every college, every academic institution, every university has to be multidisciplinary. What it is, I'll be explaining shortly. Regulatory reforms and graded autonomy have been aimed at to be granted to all the colleges, that gradually the colleges need to be autonomous on their own. They need to be self-sufficient, so that maximum benefit and more benefit can be catered to the purpose of education, to the object of objective of education. Teacher education has been stressed upon, and teacher education ke liye a lot of things have been propagated in this policy, which are revolutionary in a way to say, I will be coming to know shortly. Technological breakthrough, because technology has started playing a radical role in academic delivery now. Without technology, education, especially higher education, has become impossible. So a lot of stress has been given. A segment of the almost 25% of the entire education policy talks about the technological breakthrough and the proposals that have been raised, that have been placed as to improve the technological know-how on the technological health of the education sector. In vocations and languages have been given equal importance. Then internationalism is a new flair. You can say this is the packaging of the education policy, how it is to be packaged and how it is to be marketed and how it is to be placed in the world arena. Because internationalism is something which brings in foreign flavor into your country, and also your country, the brain aspect of your country comes to a check. It kind of stops. Because when the foreign universities would start visiting your country, then your students don't have to go away from your country. And if they don't go away from your country, then they'll stay back in the country, and probably that checks the brain-brain ratio to a great extent. Major reforms of higher education. These are the summary pages actually. I would run them through, and without explaining these 3 pages, you can have this PPT for your further references. I'll be sharing it with you. Let's come back. Let's now go on to the major details of the policy. Those 3 slides had the summaries of the education policy of higher education. TER comparison across countries, as I said earlier, that gross enrollment ratio. In the primary sections, you see that somewhere it is even more than 100, meaning to say that the same number of population repeatedly appear for these, in these classes, they go back to schools. And that is why the ratio at times becomes more than 100. In India, it is, if you look at the India figure, then it's in the primary section, it is more than 100. In the upper primary, it is 89, which is not bad. In the upper secondary, it starts falling and it becomes 63. And by the time higher education sector comes before the child, the student actually drops out. So the dropout ratio of students in India is very high. You can see, and that is why this is something worryable. This has been at the base of the education policy, that gross enrollment, the enrollment itself has to be worked upon with a lot of stress. Why? Because if students do not get enrolled into the higher education, then the entire objective of higher education or education is baffled. Then what is the gain of the entire policy? So the objective is to raise the GER by 2035. This is a policy, this is a statement in the policy that by 2035, the GER, gross enrollment ratio of college students, university students, is to be at least 50%. You can see that from 26%, the aim is to reach 50%, and the time gap that has been given is like 15 years. This is 20, we are at 20, and this is 35. So this is a long gap, and by that time, it is the objective is to enroll at least 50% students who are eligible to visit colleges, to be enrolled with colleges. And for this, 3.5 crore new seats will be added to higher education institutions, and open distance learning institutions will also be opened. These are the completely virtual learning platforms which will be opened. And specifications have been given about this ODLs also in the policy. If you get into the paragraphs and you get into the lines of the policy, you'll find that a lot of emphasis has been given in distance learning programs also. In fact, some colleges it has been said in the policy that many colleges would be eligible and would be given the liberty to go for distance learning policies, programs also. Say, for example, this women's college also, maybe after 20 years or 15 years, once it becomes an autonomous body on its own, following the principles of the new policy, would be having 5 or 6 distance learning courses as well. So for that, you don't have to have infrastructure as such, but yes, there are faculties which will be needed, and there are other educational amenities to be provided. Holistic multidisciplinary education. See, the entire concept of the education policy is to make it multidisciplinary. Now, what is this multidisciplinary? Multidisciplinary means there is no barrier or restriction in pursuing subjects. There's nothing called BCom or there's nothing called commerce or humanities or science. This is the basic and the foundational principle of entire education policy. It is absolute liberty of choosing between subjects. And that is why it is being named as multidisciplinary. So there will be flexibility in curricula. There will be creativity in the creative combinations of subjects. Now, when it says creative combination of subjects, it doesn't mean that the college will advocate some kind of a creative combination. Rather, the student will have the liberty to choose subjects as per his or her choice, depending upon the kind of creativity the child is looking ahead to. Integration of vocational education and multiple entry and exit points with appropriate certification. There is a slide which will be explaining this also. There are multiple entries and exit points available when it comes to higher education. This is the most beautiful thing of this higher education segment of the area. Part of holistic education, value-based teaching will include values of truth, righteous conduct. So these are the Indian philosophical values, which says that Shanti, Ahimsa, Prem, Sauhard, all these values are to be integrated with the citizenship values and with scientific temper in every student of higher education. That is what is translated here as truth, righteous conduct, peace, love, dharma, ahimsa, shanti, all this. As the world is becoming increasingly interconnected, global citizenship education, a response to contemporary global challenges, will also be included in the purview of global citizens. Towards high quality liberal education. Now, this is called liberal education. Why it is liberal education and why it is high quality? Because when till now we know that there is something called no, you cannot do this, or there is something called if you are doing this, then you have to do this also. So there is a very regimented, strict kind of a structured, a scenario of education in colleges or even in schools. So that has been given a liberal view that okay, fine, you can break through. And what is this liberty? What is this liberty? Liberty is the liberal education with broad multidisciplinary exposure, imaginative and flexible curricular structures, creative combinations of disciplines of study, multiple exit and entry, master's and doctoral education provide research-based specialization, 3 to 4 year undergraduate. And so this is the master's degree and the graduation degree have are going to be totally different type of educational structures now. There is a provision for a 4-year, primarily the degrees are going to be of 4 years as on date, as it is in America or in other European countries. The college degrees are basically of 4 years there also. Why? Because their degrees are integrated with, intertwined with practical experiences. There are dissertations, there are field experiences, there are scientific and lab research experiences, and these all are integrated with their formal education, the classroom education, and that is why it takes time, and hence that is why it is 4 years degree. Same is going to be here in India also. This is what is being proposed by this policy. 4-year program, bachelor's of liberal arts education, choose major and minors as per your choice, or 3-year program, that also is a bachelor's degree. Both 3 and 4-year programs lead to a degree with honors with research work. So basically the 4-year degree will be called an honors with research, whereas a 3-year degree will be called an honors. Science research. Research is not compulsory in the 3-year one. Both and exit with 2-year diploma, advanced diploma, or 1-year certificate. So suppose after having completed suppose I enroll myself in a college for a graduation course, and after having done 1 year, suddenly I think that no, I need to go for a drop. I cannot continue with this program. So what happens now? My 1 year gets wasted, completely wasted. I do not get any certificate from the college in the existing scenario. Then what happens? The entire time that I devoted and the money and other resources that I invested in 1 year goes in vain. It's completely wasted. But in the new education policy, it is being proposed, it has been said that if the student has completed 1 year, then the student is eligible for a certificate course certificate. So he is known to have completed a certificate course. If he has completed 2 years, then he's known to have completed an advanced diploma course. 3 years, it's a bachelor's degree course without research. 4 years, it's a degree course, honors with research. So this is how it has been segmented. The other beautiful part of this is that suppose after having completed 1 year of education or 2 years of college education, I want to go for a sabbatical break. I want to go and do something else. Suddenly I get interested into playing cricket or doing something in music, or suppose I want to do some short course in electronics. So I want to drop this formal education. I want to go for this electronic diploma or something like that. So for that, I need to get myself enrolled again into some other organization. And this is why all the colleges are being advocated to be multidisciplinary. What happens, the kind of scores that I have earned in this college in these 2 years, I will be getting a credit card for that, like a report card. Suppose I have got the 8 credit out of 20, or suppose I've got 12 credits out of 20. So these 12 credits will be credited into my next academic session, whichever subject and whichever college I go and join. So this is called the advantage of the credit facility. This is not existing these days in our country in college education. School education doesn't have this kind of a thing, but in college education in other countries, in other developed countries, it's a common practice. Whereas in India, this is absolutely missing, which is being now planned to be incorporated. Then comes flexible master's degree program. There are 3 options for master's degree. The first one is integrated 5-year program, which happens right after class 12th. So I want to be a master of law. I am decided, I am dedicated to it. I know that I have excellent qualities for doing something in the field of law. So I enroll myself in law and I do a 5-year master's degree straight. So that is like a bachelor's and master's together. Then the second option is 2 years for those with 3-year undergraduate degree. Suppose I have done a graduation degree of 3 years, then I have to study for 2 more years to complete a master's degree, which is in practice even now. 1 year for those with 4-year undergraduate degree. If suppose the person has got 4 years degrees, 4 years master graduation degree, then the person will have to go for 1 year. So see, this is called flexibility. This is why this is the liberal education segment. The education is being given the liberty of choosing what you want to do as per your interest. And suppose you have to change your decision also at times due to certain reason, then also you're not at loss. Your academic investment is being credited with. This is called as an academic bank of credit, which I've already explained. And the policy of credit transfer, as is in the US and in most of the European education system, will be brought into practice. Credit transfer policy, I told you, from one university to the another university, from one course to the another course. And not only that, it is also said in the policy that from India to a foreign university, if a student is migrating, then the same credit will be carried forward. Similarly, if somebody is traveling from abroad to India after 20 years, suppose Indian education system is so lucrative and it is so inviting, it is so upgraded that foreign students come and study in India. Even now, foreign students do come and study in India. Whatever they have done in their countries, their credits will also get credited in Indian education system. So this is the credit transfer policy. Credits acquired will be used to enable collaboration and exchange of credits between universities, HEIs, higher education institutions of repute in India. And then comes university entrance exams. इस समय क्या होता है? What is happening? Every university has got its own way of conducting an entrance exam, or sometimes there is no entrance exam. The admission is based on merits. But now, because the standardization of university education is to be done, that is why NTA, the National Testing Agency, which is already formed, which is already in practice, in existence, is conducting these days the JEE and the NEET examinations and some other examinations. NTA will be conducting the university entrance exams. High quality common aptitude tests are to be designed. Specialized common subject exams in science, humanities, language, arts, and vocational subjects, at least twice every year to be conducted. The exams shall test conceptual understanding and abilities to apply knowledge and shall aim to eliminate the need for taking coaching for these exams. As I said, that NTA is supposed to be conducting the college entrance exams at least twice a year. There is a catch here. Why twice a year? Because in the school segment, it has been proposed that the board-going students will be given the liberty, whether that really comes down on in practice or not, that is yet to be seen. NCERT and CBSE are working on it. But it is proposed that the board-going students will be allowed to go for semester exams. And twice a year, their semester exams will be held. This is what is there in the policy. So suppose a student who comes out in the month of May or in the month of July or in the month of November out of this semester exam should be having an opportunity to appear for a university entrance exam, and that is why there are two chances for this university entrance tests. Admission will be on the basis of subject scores, individual subject portfolio. It is not only the score the child is getting, that means it is not only 18 out of 20 that I have scored in the college entrance. Also the subject portfolio. Portfolio of the subject means now what kind of interest did I show, in what segment of the question paper, what was my performance, because the three segments of the question paper or the four segments of the question paper will exhibit four different interest areas of the student. So that is why there is a complete portfolio of the subject to be built by the test, and that will be referred to by all other colleges who would be granting admission to that student. High quality range and flexibility of the NTA testing services will enable most universities to use this common entrance exams. Rationalized institutional architecture. Basically, the institutions are to be divided into three different categories. One is research intensive university, the other one is technical intensive university, and the third one is autonomous degree granting colleges. So universities are supposed to be basically in the new policy, as per the new policy, multi-dimensional. And because if they are not multi-dimensional, if they are not providing education for different subjects together under one umbrella, then the liberty to choose subjects, which is the primary, which is the foundational concept of this policy, is not fulfilled. That is why multidisciplinary is the key word for every university. And in that also, there are two major differentiations, there are two major classifications of such universities. One is research intensive, the other one is teaching intensive. The third category is autonomous degree granting colleges. They may not be investing so much into research. They would be basically teaching students and granting degrees. The number of these autonomous colleges are supposed to be very, very less and gradually going lesser in the education system, because every college is supposed to be multidisciplinary. This is a phasal information only. Over a period of 15 years of time, it has been proposed that all the colleges of India would become multidisciplinary colleges. Affiliation of colleges is to be phased out in 15 years. This is also one radical and revolutionary decision being taken by the policy. Right now, what is happening? There is a lot of inspection raj happening these days. Inspection team aane wali hai. This is what is to be done as per NAC. This is what is to be done as per Vidyapit. This is what is to be done as per UGC. Lot of regulations to be followed. The new education policy says that do it in phases, but over a period of 15 years, remove this culture of affiliation altogether. The child doesn't have to mention his father's name always, ever now. Meaning to say, अभी क्या होता है? It is Sunbeam College for Women, Bhagwanpur, affiliated to Mahatma Gandhi Kashi Vidyapit. Compulsorily, this byline has to go. Good. In the existing system, it is good. It should be there. It brings in a lot of gravity also to the college. But the new proposal is that there don't have to be any such mentions any further. All the colleges are going to be independently operating. Yes, there will be a board of governors inside the college also, which is coming up. I'll be talking about that also. So quality is not going to be compromised, but this inspection raj is going to be closed. in phases. Consolidation of current 800 universities and 40,000 colleges into about 15,000 large, well-resourced, vibrant, multidisciplinary institutions is what is the aim of this policy. Affiliating university, deemed university, mind it, technical university, unitary university, etc. concepts will cease to exist, and all of these will be replaced by university catering multidisciplinary education, period. Right now, there are so many varieties of universities. Even under UGC, there are 3-4 different categories of universities. All these are going to come to a closure. It will only be either a multidisciplinary university or a multidisciplinary standalone autonomous college. Multidisciplinary educational research universities at par with IITs and IIMs to be set up as models of best multidisciplinary education, and every district one such multidisciplinary educational research university. Shortly, they're called, in short terms, they're called MERU. These MERUs are to be established almost in every district, at least one. If not possible, then in a cluster of 2-3 small districts, there has to be one MERU. MERUs will help set up startup incubation center, technology development centers, research in frontier areas for greater industry academic linkages and interdisciplinary studies. Given the scenario of epidemic and pandemic, it has been advised that HEIs and MERUs play lead role to undertake research in areas of epidemiology, virology, infectious diseases, and vaccinology. This has been added, I believe, very recently in the policy before it was being released. Now coming to the research segment of the policy. The policy has talked at length about research, about doing a lot of, about giving a lot of emphasis into research. Why? Because higher education is all about finding out something new. Higher education is not something about getting into books and visiting a lot of libraries and thereby creating yet another book and then getting a degree awarded, which is actually happening in the existing scenario. So what is the something new that has come out of the scholar? What is the contribution of the scholar to the country, to the field of education, to the society? And hence research is very important. If you look at this shows the status of investment on research and innovation. In India, of course, it is the lowest. 0.7% of the GDP goes into research. There are only 15 research scholars out of 1 lakh population. Just imagine. But total patent applications, not bad the figure is, I must say, 45,000. Whether you do research or not, you apply for patents definitely. So this is also an indicator that the government needs to concentrate more funds and mobilize more funds into research segment of the education policy. The National Research Foundation has been proposed to be established. This is a new organization which will be formed, and the primary objective of the organization will be to foster research-oriented education in the country, or to help scholars conduct a lot of research into different fields of education, into multidisciplinary universities and also abroad. The National Research Foundation will significantly expand research and innovation in the country. Autonomous body set up through an act of parliament. It will be an autonomous body. Annual grant of 20,000 crores increased progressively over the next decade. So first drop in investment to this corpus, or to the first corpus of this foundation, will be 20,000 crores, which will be progressively increased. Scope of work of the foundation will be funding research in all disciplines through a competitive peer review based process, building research capacity at academic institutions across the country, creating beneficial linkages between researchers, government and industry, so that the outcome of the research is also substantially recognized. And then the advantage coming out of the research goes into the industry, goes into different government sectors, goes into the economy. Recognizing outstanding research through special prizes and seminars. This is towards promoting the research scholars. Foundation will have 4 major divisions to start with: sciences, technology, social science, arts, and humanities. Higher education governance and regulation is also one of the most talked about part of the education policy. It is said that the governance of the higher education institutions now onwards is going to be light but tight. It's a very, very talked about phrase about the education policy, about the higher education policy segment. Light but tight means that external pressure won't be there. No governmental interference on day-to-day basis will be there. There will be one board of governors, which will be the core team of that college, which will be comprised of eminent educationists selected and appointed by the college itself. There is no authorizing authority for this BOG. The BOG is an independent autonomous body established by the college itself. But once established and given the liberty and given the identity, BOG will act autonomously. It will not be under anybody's influence or pressure. And there won't be any day-to-day basis the government circulars to be followed. So that is why it is light, but it is tight at the same time. A BOG will consist of a group of highly qualified, competent, and dedicated individuals having proven capabilities and a strong sense of commitment to the institution and to the cause of regulation of HEIs. The summary of this governance business: standard setting, funding, accreditation, and regulations separated, conducted by independent bodies, eliminating. Right now, what happens? All this happens through UGC, if you mind. Standard setting, part of it is inspected by NAAC. Funding, accreditation, and regulation, all these are done under one umbrella. But now there are going to be separate bodies, separate independent bodies to be working for these different objectives pertaining to higher education. National Higher Education Regulatory Authority, only regulator for all higher education, including professional education. This is going to be the only regulatory body now. National Higher Education Regulatory Authority. University Grants Commission transforms into Higher Education Grants Council. New General Education Council develop National Higher Education Qualification Framework. Accreditation will be based on regulation. National Assessment and Accreditation Council oversee and develop an ecosystem of accreditation institutions. State departments of higher education will have to be established. State councils of higher education facilitate peer support and best practice sharing. Peer support and best practice sharing among the colleges and among the universities, multidisciplinary universities. Common regulatory regime for public and private institutions is a very, very important point. Common regulatory regime for public and private institutions. Abhi kya hota hai? If it is a government undertaking, then there is a certain set of rules. If it is a private undertaking, then there is yet another set of rules. Obviously, the private organizations face a bigger brunt. It's tougher for the private organizations because it is believed that private organizations may not be performing up to the desired expectation at the level. Whereas in the public sector, we find a lot of policies happening. So, but in the new education policy, it has been said that both the segments will have equal amount of regimentary, regulatory authorities and regulatory provisions. Same is to be applied to both the segments. Private philanthropic initiatives are also to be encouraged. This is towards the research outcome. Higher Education Commission of India will be set up as single overreaching umbrella. Higher Education Commission of India is going to be the only commission dedicated for higher education. Right now, there is nothing like this. HSCI to have 4 independent verticals. As just now you saw in the previous slide that 4 different kinds of work is to be done by 4 different organizations. Right now, it is primarily being done by UGC. So HECI will have 4 independent verticals: National Higher Education Regulatory Council for regulation, General Education Council for standard setting, and Higher Education Grants Council for funding, and National Accreditation Council for accreditation. HECI will function through faceless intervention through technology and will have powers to penalize HEIs not conforming to norms and standards. So HECI is going to be the supreme regulating authority for higher educational institutions. Now onwards, public and private higher educational institutions will be governed by the same set of norms for regulation, accreditation, and academic standards. This is towards bringing in inclusivity and equality between the two vitally distantly located segments of education, public and private. Empowered governance and autonomy in higher education. This is almost the repetition of the previous points. Now, creation of a Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog, an apex advisory body for elementary to university education in India, duly replacing the Central Advisory Board of Education. This will be the apex advisory body, Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog. The Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog will be chaired by the Minister of Education and shall consist of 30 members. 2/3 of them shall be eminent educationists. So you can see that even in the bureaucracy, top ranker educationists are going and sitting now. So probably the education system will actually see a facelift. Researchers and leading professionals from various fields. Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog will have a permanent secretariat of the Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog that will be headed by an executive director who shall be a person of eminence in education, deep understanding of India's education system. Rajya Shiksha Ayog on similar parameters as Rashtriya Shiksha Ayog will also be established, headed by these Rajya Shiksha Ayogs will be chaired by the education ministers of the states. Ministry of Human Resource Development will be redesigned as Ministry of Education, which is already done. You know that it is now Ministry of Education. A permanent, this is also a very important, very drastic decision that has been taken for the well-being of education in the country. Indian Education Services, this is going to be a permanent new commission at the civil services level, which is to be initiated. This is going to be Indian Education Service, IES. So yet another category of IAS will be IES. And the registrars, where will these IES would be joining in as? The registrars of all universities now onwards will be essentially these IES. So they have to come through a tough selection procedure after due academics and training, and after testing and after proving their merit, they become the IES officers and they join as registrars of the universities. These universities need not be essentially only the public universities. Even private universities registrars are supposed to be IES only. Faculty. Talking about the faculty, the policy has talked a lot about faculty also. The National Policy on Education of 1986 also did talk something about faculty empowerment, but it did not give too much of detail. But this policy has given so much of details about faculty empowerment. Number one principle of this policy is that education should be joined by people who are serious about education. Joining as a teacher, joining as an assistant professor should not be just by chance. It has to be effectively by choice. So this is what is going to be the testing parameters of NTA pronouncing further. That it has to come through, the candidate has to come through the testing parameters of NTA so as to be eligible to apply for a professor's job or a teacher's job. Adequate faculty in every institution, number one. Number two, prevalent approach of ad hoc contractual appointments to be stopped with immediate effect. There's nothing called ad hoc teachers now anymore, ad hoc professors now anymore. One has to join as an assistant professor, so to say, if the rank continues to be, or whatever the rank or the nomenclature comes up, but it has to be a permanent kind of a joining. There's nothing called ad hoc now. Faculty recruitment based on academic expertise, teaching capacities, disposition of public services. Appropriately designed permanent employment track system in all institutions by 2030. Continuous professional development, CPD, I'll be talking slightly in detail about it later. Faculty recruitment and development, career progression, compensation management to be part of every institutional development plan. IDP of every institution must have this in detail, that what is going to be the progressive plan of the faculty development also of the institution. Continuous professional development, I just now said that CPD, this is an important element of this policy. What is believed that when people join the profession of teaching, till that point of time, their academics are till a certain level. But as days go on, and as time passes, things change. They need to keep updating themselves. The teachers need to keep updating themselves and bring them at par with the latest in education, latest in technology, latest in the research and findings. That is why it has been made compulsory that at least 50 hours of CPD, 50 hours of continuous professional development, CPD, like a pilot's experience is counted by the number of hours the pilot has flown the aircraft in the air. Similarly, a professional's or a professor's expertise will be known as how many hours the professor has given in CPD, continuous professional development. Now, what is this? What is exactly to be done? For developmental opportunities in the form of local, state, national, and international teaching and subject workshops, as well as online teacher development modules. A lot of modules would be coming up, and even now there are a lot of things existing which are connected to what you are teaching or what you are doing. So in the relevant field, you can learn something new, and thereby you can submit a certification that, okay, fine, I have invested so many hours in my professional development. You can learn something new also, which might ultimately help your professional expertise. CPD opportunities will cover the latest pedagogies regarding foundational literacy and numeracy, formative and adaptive assessment of learning outcomes. Teacher Education National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education 2021 will be formulated by the NCTE, National Council for Teacher Education, in consultation with NCERT. By 2030, the minimum degree qualification for teaching will be a 4 years integrated BEd degree. This is for schools basically. Stringent action, by the way, nothing such has been talked about the professors, about the higher education. So it is understood that what is in practice probably will continue to be in practice, because a PhD degree education continues to be so. Stringent action will be taken against substandard standalone teacher education institutions, resulting into either being developed into a multidisciplinary HEI or being closed finally. That means the independent colleges which are running their BEd courses currently may have to see a closure in the time to come, unless they develop themselves into a multidisciplinary higher education institution. So teacher education is basically 4-year integrated BEd. That is the minimum degree qualification. It can be a 2-year BEd also, provided the bachelor's degree is of 2 years or 3 years. 1-year BEd degree is also possible, provided the bachelor's degree the person has completed of 4 years. So these are 3 different levels of BEd education. Improvement of teacher education, new and comprehensive national curriculum framework, as I told earlier. NTA testing for admission to BEd, stringent action against substandard and standalone teaching institutions, setting up of national mission for mentoring with a large pool of outstanding senior or retired faculty. This national mission of mentoring is something new that has been introduced in this policy, and which is obviously extremely well thought of, because what happens at the age of 60, when the person is actually richly experienced, the person retires as a professor of a college or a university. Thereafter, he becomes only a guest for different occasions. He goes there and he delivers a speech and receives some clappings, and that's it. Whereas the huge amount of wisdom and knowledge that the person is still carrying can be of importance to education still, can be of importance to society still. That is why this national mentoring mission for mentoring has been thought of. I'm coming in detail about it in the next mentoring mission. A national mission for mentoring will be established with a large pool of outstanding senior or retired faculty, including those with the ability to teach in Indian languages who would be willing to provide short and long-term mentoring professional support to university college teachers. Those who are at the verge of retirement should feel happy here. This is the slide which makes them happy actually. But even after retirement, you have some lights coming in. You don't have to sit home, sir. No, you are still contributing in the field of education. Your services can be hired. A national repository will be set up to maintain all records related to institutions, teachers, and students in digital form as well for ready reference. Further, a single online digital repository will be created where copyright-free educational resources will be made available in multiple languages. To a large extent, CBSE has come out with such repositories. Diksha is one of them. Use of technology platforms such as Swayam Diksha for online training of teachers will be encouraged for standardized training programs for all. All fresh entrants to PhD. This is a beautiful part of PhD programs coming up. It has been said that when after PhD, most of the time after PhD, the person gets into teaching. But unlike B.Ed, in the PhD program, the scholar is not exposed to the nitty-gritties of education, of teaching as such. Then how is he going to be expected to be an excellent teacher? That's the reason why all fresh entrants to PhD programs will have to essentially take credit-based courses in teaching, education, pedagogy, writing related to their PhD subject during their doctoral period. So a certain capsule course, maybe of 3 months, maybe of 6 months, they need to dedicate into the education, into the academic delivery of their subject. Assuming that if I have to teach this subject someday, then what are the nitty-gritties of teaching as such that I'll have to go through? This has been integrated into the PhD programs now onwards. Reimagining vocational or professional education. Now, why is the term being used, reimaging? Reimaging means giving a new image to it, giving a new look to it, a new thought to it. What happens? It is if somebody is doing an ITI, he or she loves to be mispronounced at it as IIT, meaning to say that it sounds not so good. Acha, it is ITI. So, whereas it is such an important vocational study, this is technical institutional studies, which directly connects you or your skills to earning something. So, vocational education has been reimagined here, meaning to say that people should find pride and lot of honor in doing some vocational courses as it is widely in practice in the European countries, in America, or in Great Britain. They undergo certain vocational studies. In the school segment of the education policy, it has been made compulsory in the secondary education level for every child to go for a capsule course of 3 months or 6 months into at least one trade. And that trade can be electricals, carpentry, or whatever, but it is compulsory. Similarly, here also special emphasis is being given towards professional education or vocational education. Percentage of youth going for formal vocational education in India is merely 5%, whereas that of USA is 52% and Germany is 75% and South Korea is 96%. So think about these countries. They probably don't even go to universities. They start earning. They start running their families. So that is why emphasis is being, because it is not possible for everybody to spend 5 long years in higher education. Maybe the need is to start earning money. So that is why this vocational education has been given a different look. National Skills Qualification Framework, NSQF, which was adopted in the year 2013, and 2 subjects of NSQF have been integrated at the level of class 9 and 10 even now by CBSE, which are optional, but they are there. To be reworked upon to foster vocational education. A clear action plan with defined strategy and targeted timeline will be developed so that by 2025, at least 50% of learners through schools or HEIs are well trained through vocational courses. Vocational education will be integrated totally with formal streams of studies over a period of 10 years. So a 10 years interim period has been granted that within 10 years time, this vocational education element has to be completely integrated with formal education. It will become a part, essential part of the formal education. These are something about financial support for students. Basically, these are for SC, ST, OBC and SCDGs. The National Scholarship Portal will be expanded to support and foster the otherwise compromised groups in the society. HEIs will be encouraged to offer larger number of free ships and scholarships to the students. Even the private HEIs will be encouraged. They will be requested, they will be in fact asked to come out with certain scholarship schemes based on merits so as to encourage students to perform well and also to avail the benefit of scholarship. Increase in public investment by central and state government by 20% on overall expenditure over a period of 10 years. Center and states will work together to increase the public investment in the education sector to reach 6% of GDP at least at the earliest. Open and distance learning, as I told you earlier also, that these massive open online courses, MOOCs, are to be started. And for this, distance online learning opportunities will be opened by every college. They will be given the liberty to start with courses of their choices. They don't have to apply to any approving authority that, okay, we want to start with this course because it's a distance learning course. So it can be. Of course, the government will come out with further nitty-gritties about it before the parameters will be set as to which particular courses need to be supported with what kind of infrastructural support or maybe intellectual support from the college end. But open and distance learning is going to be a booster for all such students who physically cannot travel to a college or probably would like to take advantage of time span or time gap between two courses. Online education and digital education, seeing the current pandemic situations, this has, I believe, been added towards the end of when this policy was being released. Because of the recent rise in the pandemic situations, when people or when in fact the entire world realized that okay, education can also be effectively done through online mode. Special emphasis has been given here in this policy also that in the higher education segment, MHRD should be coming out with certain policies so as to enhance the opportunities of digital learning in the country. Technology in education, special emphasis to be given to improving the classroom process of teaching, learning, and evaluation, aiding in preparation of teachers and continuous professional development of teachers, improving access to education in remote areas and for disadvantaged groups, SEDG, improving the overall planning, administration, and management of the entire education system, focusing on deploying measures for electrification of all educational institutions, as electricity is a prerequisite for all technology-based interventions, and this is why the government has to come out with bigger investments for the HEAs. Now, language also is one of the very important aspects of this policy. Promotion of Indian languages. Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation, National Institute for Pali, Persian, and Prakrit. These have been advocated, these have been prescribed to be opened so as to foster education of these languages. These are the rich languages. These exhibit the rich heritage and culture of your country. And many literature of our country, which are the age-old literature, are written in these languages. So these languages need to be revived. And this is why these institutions have been planned to be opened. Focus on language, literature, scientific vocabulary in Indian languages. This is though a dream, but probably will become possible someday, that scientific vocabulary in Indian languages. Strong Indian language and literature programs across the country. Recruitment of quality language teachers, and teaching and promotion of Indian Sign Language. Sign language is also important for them who cannot speak, and obviously the hearing impaired also understand the sign languages. So that is why the Indian Sign Language institutions need to be opened, and in large numbers so as to promote teaching and learning of this. Internationalization, as I've already talked about it earlier, that the credit carry forward system of internationalization is very important because it is all about giving accreditation to the quality of education of your country, or giving accreditation to the education that the student from a foreign country is traveling into your country. It is basically the collaboration of the educational qualities of the two countries. World's top 100 institutions are to be invited to establish their institutions in India, though it's a far-fetched dream. It's very true, but probably this becomes possible someday, that the world's top 100 institutions also start coming into your country. At least this is the vision of the policy. Top Indian institutions will be collaborated with world leaders in education. Foreign branches of Indian multidisciplinary HEIs are to be spread for international knowledge divided. Similarly, many Indian universities or colleges also will be encouraged to open their branches, their institutions in foreign countries for ease of collaboration, for effective integration of the two education systems. Credits and grades earned are to be validated at par with international ranking of Indian education system worldwide. Adult education is also a big part of the higher education segment of the national education policy. Policy aims at 100% youth and adult literacy by 2035. Period. That's the target that has been set. What exactly is to be done in adult education? Innovative initiatives for adults with the help of community participation and technology integration with HEIs, centers, adult education centers with HEIs and other public institutions, technology-based high-quality options for adult learning such as apps, online courses, modules, satellite-based TV channels. They need to be connected with all these online platforms for educating. Online books and ICT-equipped libraries also can be made available, can be brought into their reach. Adult education centers, etc., to be developed through government and philanthropic initiatives. That means this is going to happen between public and private participation. The adult education curriculum will have 5 different segments: foundational, literacy, and numeracy, so as to enable the illiterate adults to at least make sense in reading and writing or in their day-to-day life, the necessities of their life, and the basic numeracy, that is basic calculation, the basic arithmetic they should be knowing. Critical life skills, vocational skills development in case they show interest into certain field of vocation, then they can get into it, or they will be given exposure to different fields of vocational studies, thereby making them self-reliant and self-sustained. Basic education of different subjects. What is your country about? How many states are there in your country? What is this government system? What is the Constitution of India? What is the language? What is the national flag? The basic education. Then continuing education, if the adults thereafter show interest, that okay, fine, I am getting interested in education, now I want to go further. Then bringing them into the formal streams of education, thereby making them. So this is all about the higher education segment of national education policy. I hope I did not bore you and I could cover up all the important aspects of the education policy of higher education segment. There's nothing else there in the education segment of higher education. Primarily, it is towards liberal learning and liberal education and making the inspection Raj wale colleges independent and liberal in a period of 15 years. With that, we come to a closure of my presentation. And now, in case anyone among you would like to contribute to what I presented, I will be immensely happy about it, and I would invite questions also in case the house has any further question to be answered. Over to you, please.
Any question?
thank you so much. Almost all of you have participated. I'm glad that I could at least connect with all of you. I see 30 participants.
Thank you, Sandeep sir.
Sir.
Thank you, एक मिनट रुक गाड़ी. Thank you, Sandeep sir. It was well explained, well researched, and well presented session. I heard this is a second session on a NEP from you, and you explained every point in detail, line by line. You explained so much what is the integrated course and why is the course a 2-year course in the research, and now education is not only education but it is a skilled education. Thank you so much, Sandeep sir. But I think it was so exhaustive that I can't understand together everything. So again, listen to your
Yes,
recording and will understand. Thank you, Sandeep sir, so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Well explained, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
Amit
so
sir.
much.
Thank you.
It was a research in itself. Your explanation was a research in itself.
I'm glad to know that, because the policy, if you read the education policy,
Yes,
the
sir.
literature, if you read, then the policy has been written in a very, very lucid manner, in a very, very, reader friendly manner. But to cull out the details into bullets, you need to read it several times. It takes time.
Thank you, sir, for such a nice explanation. Sir, it is a request. Can you share the slides so that if we have missed any of the points,
Yeah, yes,
then
sir.
we
Sure,
try
sure.
to
I
look
will.
after it.
Certainly, I will share this slide right after this presentation is over. I'll share it with Ranjit sir. Ranjit sir, please post it further.
Thank you, sir. These slides are more informative.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep sir.
Saurabh this side. Saurabh
Yes.
saying that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sir, as I was listening your deliberation about this new education policy,
Yes.
if I culminate the moral of the story, or the moral of the story is that it is all about the quality enhancement in education system, right? If
Yes,
I'm not
yes. Yes, yes.
Sir, so it is enhancement of quality in education. So is there any provision or is there any arrangement or this new education system address this about the reservation system in education? If reservation system persisting in the education system, how the
Right.
quality will ensure?
No.
We have not talked about
Unfortunately, no.
organization.
Unfortunately, no. There is nothing that has been talked about in reservation. I'll tell you one thing. The administration part of the education. The education policy talked about education only. When you talk about reservation, promotion on the basis of reservation, appointments of professors on the basis of reservation, or discounting the merit because the person is of a particular category, these things have not been talked about in the policy at all, because this cannot be a part of education policy as such. These are administrative policies of the government, which from time to time may change, may be revised. But of course, it carry a lot of impression in the quality of education. Saurabh sir, you are perfect. You are absolutely right. Unfortunately, no, the policy doesn't talk anything about the reservation system.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir, one thing more I would like to ask, like soon after this implementation of this policy, there will be online courses which will be run by the colleges itself.
Yes, yes, it is proposed so. It will not be compulsory for the colleges to pick up online courses, but yes, if the colleges want to go for ODLI, online distance learning, then they can go for. The provision has been laid, because the colleges now onwards will be governed by the Board of Governors. The colleges will not be under the impression or supervision of universities anymore.
Right.
They are to be, over a period of 15 years, in a phased manner, they are to be set independence. British Raj se unko azadi dilani hai. So once they are azad, they can adopt any kind of courses they want to go for.
Sir, but which body will grant autonomy to the college then?
Sorry, which body will?
Which body will grant autonomy to the college then?
So the National Higher Education Commission, I talked about it in the slides. That is going to be the Supreme Commission. Now what exactly would be the parameters? What exactly would be the bylaws to be complied with? Those things are yet to come up on surface. But as a broad policy, what has been decided is that the colleges are going to be liberalized. They are not going to be governed by government bureaucracy on day-to-day basis, because the colleges are busy making files than investing time into quality enhancement of education through research.
So this will be a very good thing on the part of the college if they are getting the autonomy.
Yes, it is going to be.
So I have read that the autonomy will be given on a graded scale.
Yes, you are right. Autonomy will be given on a graded. There are 3 phases of autonomy. First will be in the field of education, then it will be in the field of administration of the college, then it will be the financial autonomy. There are 3 different phases. These are there in the slides also. I'll be sharing the slides with you. So in the field of education, first the college will have to prove that yes, I am self-sustaining and I am able to produce quality education. Then obviously the next level will be administrative level, in the sense that the colleges will be freed from administrative red tapes. Then finally, the financial autonomy of the college will have to be proved to a certain authority. Obviously, that authority is yet to be defined. So wherever it is to be proved, it has to be proved. And proving the financial liberty, the financial strength of a college, especially if it is a private college, will not be a challenging proposition. Why? Because the colleges are anyway self-financed even now. So this is how in phases the colleges are going to be liberalized and they're going to be the independent bodies.
That's very encouraging.
Yes, true.
But Sandeep said till now, the autonomous colleges are also affiliated with the university.
Yes.
80% norms they follow of the university, only
Yes.
they can have changed the 20% norms
Yes.
regarding the syllabus, examination pattern, everything.
Yes.
So it will be the same like this also.
No, not at all, not at all. The existence of these colleges will come to a closure. They will have to develop into a multidisciplinary colleges, number 1. Number 2, they also will be given the liberty to become autonomous on their own. See, there are 2 culminations of every college, 2 possibilities of culmination of every college, every academic institution, every higher education institution working even now currently in the country. Either they grow up into a multidisciplinary institution of their own, or they get connected with a university. The maximum load of a university that has been defined is 100 colleges. Right now, there are 300, 400, 500 colleges affiliated to a university, and the university actually doesn't know what is the name of the college which is affiliated to it. Basically, it's a Kagzi Karwai. But in this change scenario, the colleges may remain connected with a university, but they will be known as a part of the university, not affiliated to the university as such. So they also become a multi-dimensional educational institution, higher education institution. So that is how they become a part of the university and not a call. Their own identity of a college will come to a closure. They'll become a part of the university, or they themselves become autonomous. There are 2 consequences given.
Any more questions? Anybody?
Well, then it was nice spending some time in the evening with such intelligent minds of
Thank you, sir.
college, and मैंने बहुत हिम्मत करके कॉलेज के प्रोफेसर्स को पढ़ा दिया आज शाम को.
अच्छा पढ़ाया सर, बहुत अच्छा पढ़ाया.
बढ़िया पढ़ाया आपने.
It was clearing a step.
डिस्टिंक्शन मिला आपको.
सर हम लोगों के लिए इतना अच्छा आपने
समझाया
रिसर्च किया।
और अच्छे
सर
you.
एक क्वेश्चन और है. I was just
बताएं.
thinking whether to ask or not. So
Yeah.
you were telling about the vocational courses. So these
Yes.
vocational courses will be run in the college also.
Yes.
So it will be affiliated. मतलब college themselves will be running these vocational
Colleges,
courses.
yes. The colleges themselves will be running these courses, vocational courses. They will be integrated with the formal education. As in the school, what is happening in the higher secondary segment of school, say in class 7, 8, has been made compulsory that every child will have to go for a certificate course into a particular vocation of child's choice of 3 months or 6 months certification course, which will be a part of the child's school education. The credits will be carried forward. The credits will be merited to the child. Similarly, in higher education also, it has been proposed that vocational educations will be so dignified, will be dignified to that extent that students will find it as a matter of pride to get connected with a vocational course also. That's the whole idea.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Well then, thank you so much once again to all of you. I should call it a day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye-bye. Good night to all of you.
Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind, sir.
Jai Hind, sir.